We go. All right, so welcome to Building an Online Presence for Creative and Digital Careers. We are very happy to see all the students here, and we have a wonderful, wonderful panel here for you today, talking about all things in the creative realm. And so we are going to get started with some of the things that we do here at the Career Center. And we're briefly going to talk about that so that we could get all the beautiful panelists here today. All right. So for the agenda for today, talking about some of the Career Center services that we have, and then we're going to go straight into introductions and having the panelists answer some of our questions. And then we'll have a networking breakout room session so that you can connect with the professionals. I think especially in the career realm, knowing folks and networking is a big component to being in the professional field. So we wanted to make sure that we give you that opportunity along the way. Now, we do have the times here, and potentially will be kind of adjusted based off of how engaged we are. So we'll try to give you as much time in the end, but we also want to hear all the awesome answers that we have from the panelists. Okay. Great. So here are some of our resources that we have at UCLA Career Center. Feel free to take a screenshot of it. The biggest pieces that we want to focus on is the career advising and the drop-in sessions that we have throughout the year. We want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to build up your resume, build up your online presence along the way. This is a good first stepping stone into that. But also networking is a big part of it as well. And if there's any nervousness in that, this is already your practice point. So you have this today for you. But we can also help you along the way in building that confidence as you navigate through the career field of your choice. So we're going to jump right into the resources, the other resources as well. So Handshake is our one-stop shop for all different things, whether it be building your appointments, as well as connecting with employers, finding job opportunities, and all of our resources here that's highlighted, including VMOC, which helps you build up your resume, as well as interviewing that helps you practice your interviewing skills. But there's a lot of different components that we can answer along the way. I'll skip over this. Feel free to take a screenshot of this as well. And we'll be sending this presentation to the folks that have registered, so you don't have to vigorously write any notes down. All right. So what we're going to do is jump straight into it. As I mentioned, we have such a wonderful panel for you all today. I'm very excited, and we have so many different disciplines in this space. We wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to meet different folks. And so when I'm mentioning we, I realize I haven't even introduced myself. My name is Andre Filippo. I'm one of the assistant directors here at the Career Center, and I revolve a lot around the creative careers. And I wanted to allow Angela to introduce herself as well. Go for it, Angela.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela. I'm currently a third year at UCLA studying cognitive science, and I'm also a career peer intern at the UCLA Career Center. So if any of you have come to drop-ins before, you probably have seen me there. But yeah, super excited to have you all here today.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, so we are going to get started with our introductions. So our first official question is, if you can please introduce yourself, maybe your educational and professional background, what you're currently working on, and maybe how you found yourself where you are. And we are going to kick it off with Free and go from there. So if you want to take us away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Free Hester. I'm 32 years old. I'm from Los Angeles. My passion lies in creating one-of-one wearable art jackets that many celebrities you might have seen wear on a lot of these red carpets. I also am one of the co-creators of the Hoop Bus, that's been featured in the NBA. And, I've finished school in 2015, and I literally right after school, dove into my practice as an artist, and I call it an artpreneur. And it's been an amazing opportunity for me to just build up my passion and my dreams, making them come to life.
Cool. Should I go?
Yeah, go for it, King.
Cool. My name is Keon. I do 3D motion kind of designs. I worked for an artist named Rafiq for 4 years, and then I've kind of jumped onto different animation jobs from there. Currently, I work remotely. I'm doing kind of 2 jobs at once, and yeah, just doing 3D animation stuff.
Alrighty, hi everybody. My name is Ayu. I just graduated from UCLA last year, so I'm pretty fresh out of UCLA governance. And so for my education, I've gone back and forth between Bali, Indonesia, and the US, from elementary school to middle school, and then from high school onwards, I stayed in the Bay Area and in LA. That provided a really kind of so many different opportunities for me, especially as a performing artist. And so, yeah, I'm currently a choreographer, dancer, musician, singer, and actor. I am currently in Canada. I'm catching a flight later, but we just finished a couple performances here. So it's just been really super cool to be in the performing arts. I find that I'm here because of the tremendous amount of support that I have from my communities, from my networks, and using that kind of support and those networks to take as many opportunities as I can to showcase any work that I'm working on. I have, in terms of work that I'm doing, I have a Fulbright coming up. So I just received a Fulbright scholarship, heard about it like very recently, so I'm really excited. And so I'm going to be doing that, and I'll be working with young and older artists in Bali. So hopefully I'll be able to create art with them while centering Balinese arts and voices and performance. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Tula B. Strong. I am a performance artist who is working within the disciplines of dance, devised theater, and American folk music. And so I create multidisciplinary work that really explores the everyday and supernatural experiences of Black folks in the US and beyond, and have a particular lens on this world of Christian mysticism. So I received my bachelor's at Princeton, my master's in education at Loyola Marymount, and then my MFA in dance here at UCLA. And in addition to my art practice, I now currently teach as a lecturer at Cal State Fullerton, where I teach Black dance and performance studies in their African American studies department. And I got here I never thought I would be here. First off, my mom's a refugee. I came from a low income background. It was really scary thinking about going into the art. So it was a lot of prayers and a lot of just leaping and taking, big leaps of faith to get to this place, and lots of people who helped along the way too.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kara Janelle, and my educational background is I have a BA in dance and a minor in African American studies from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where I also studied abroad at the University of Cape Town in dance and sociology. And I graduated in spring 2021 from UCLA with my MFA in World Arts and Cultures and Dance from the Department of World Arts and Cultures and Dance. And one of the reasons why I'm here on this panel today is because of networking and my good sis Tula B. Strong, who referred me. And so I just wanted to go ahead and hint in the importance of building relationships and understanding that it is very important to go ahead and even early now when you are in your collegiate career to go ahead and start making those connections of what you want to do in the future. I am currently a choreographer and artistic director. I work independently. I worked in the commercial and film and television industry in Los Angeles for about 10 years. And I currently reside in Atlanta, Georgia, where I work as a student artist engagement coordinator in the Office of the Arts at Georgia Tech, or Georgia Institute of Technology. We are currently working on a underwater sculpture installation in Puerto Rico that I'm going to help launch and do the unveiling on, flying out there on Saturday for the week, where we have students doing art and technology integration projects. I also am currently the artistic director of Ladies of Hip Hop, who is based in New York City. They'll be celebrating 20 years next year, and we do a lot of work with Lincoln Center, Afropunk, Guggenheim, Jacob's Pillow, just to name a few. And then I recently launched my own dance company as well, Fleeva Ja Creative Collective, where I am working on building out concert work and just curating more dance that focuses on Black women and our strength and Afrofuturism and just the celebration of our culture. So that is what I do. And I'll pass it on.
I just want to say how amazing it is meeting all of you. You're so talented. I feel so honored to be in the same room. Free, I'm a huge fan of the Hoop Bus, so it's cool to be in the same room as you and IU. Congrats on the Fulbright. That's incredible. Everyone is awesome. I wish I could give kudos to everything everyone's doing. My name is Matt Playa. I'm an art director. I currently work for the agency Real Estate. It's a luxury firm. I don't know if anyone watches Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Mauricio Umansky heads this firm and I work for him. He's a pretty cool guy. As far as my educational background goes, I actually went to a few different places. I started out at CalArts. I studied character animation. And then I dropped out because I didn't want to be $200,000 in debt. It sounded scary. And then I ended up transferring to UCLA, and I actually got my undergrad in English and minored in public affairs and wanted to pursue a career in politics for quite some time, and actually worked for UCLA for the Center for Health Services and Society, which is in the Semel Institute. If anyone is working in mental health, I had a really strong desire to work in mental health as a researcher. And then I had always done art on the side and freelanced and decided to make a shift, and I wanted to work in the creative field and ended up getting hired for a number of creative agencies and just sort of worked my way up as a graphic designer to creative strategist and now an art director. And I've worked for a number of really cool companies and have touched projects from Netflix and Warner Brothers, and really was working in the entertainment space until the last few years until I got poached. And now I'm working in real estate, and that's a super interesting venture, especially these last few years, if anyone's been following the market and just the current economic status of our country. And yeah, and then I got my MFA at Otis a few years ago in design, and that's me.
I'd like to echo Matt in being completely impressed and excited to be around all of the individuals on this panel. And also to those of you who are attending, you are going in the right direction by attending something like this. I got my MFA at UCLA. I think I might be the oldest alum here, I'm not sure, but I graduated in 2004 when an online presence as a painter was really not what you did. So I kind of had to get my, bearings in the virtual world of representing your work. And now everyone just looks at painting online. So it's kind of a strange switch. I did my undergrad at NYU in studio art and art history. I'm the child of immigrants. So investing all of my income into going into the arts and in getting into a lot of student debt was just really not my parents wanted for me. But I had to make it work. And then after going to UCLA, I did what people usually say not to do, which is I left the country and moved to Germany, had some good luck there and started my art career there pretty much in painting. I got my first gallery representation there and showed in museums there. I also show here, and currently I'm preparing for a solo exhibition in Nuremberg, which is a very historical ancient city in Germany. And it's in a, unfortunately, what was actually used as a World War II bunker. And if you ever get to show in Europe, and a lot of you obviously do international work, but what other countries do with a lot of their historical monuments is turn them into creative spaces where people can share and come together and kind of recreate that space and kind of inhabit the feelings and all of the experiences that were there. So it's an honor for me to be able to do that as well. I'm happy to be here and thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And we're gonna get right into the question portion of our section. And I'm gonna pass it off to Angela to kick us off with our question for you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for introducing themselves. I feel like I've already learned so many cool, fascinating things about everyone. But yeah, moving along with our panel, our first question or set of questions that I want to pose to everyone is, how have you created and molded your personal brand to what it is now? And additionally, what does your personal brand mean to you? And I'll leave the floor open to anyone who wants to jump in.
I guess I'll go again.
Free, you take it.
Yes. Thank you guys again. I'm also honored just to be here with everyone. This is an amazing opportunity, you know, to share and to gain insight on the respective fields that we're in. I strive to empower, you know, the people that are able to wear my designs, you know, since fashion is kind of my main medium. You know, I think of fashion as like a vehicle that is able to take my art, because I'm also a fine artist. So I use garments as a way to promote what it is that I'm doing. This is one of the paintings that I created. And I also have kind of hint a little bit of like art history in my work. So if you guys are familiar with Rene Magritte, I took the inspiration of what he created. And as you guys know, there's not a lot of representation for Black people in this space. So for me, a lot of my interpretation is kind of like hip hop. It's like sampling history and reinterpreting that into what, you know, we see here. And, you know, I'm constantly inspired just by like my hometown. I'm from Los Angeles. Most people who are coming to Los Angeles, they're like, oh my God, a native? Like, you know, I never actually met a real native Los Angeles or whatever. But, you know, I use a lot of infusion of like, you know, the culture, like with graffiti, hip hop. I mean, I'm actually right now in the process of curating and producing a show that is paying homage to hip hop for the 50th anniversary during this BET weekend coming up. So a lot of my jackets really are functional in a way that allow people to actually wear like a painting. And yeah, I think, you know, that's my interpretation of what I do.
I guess I'll go. I think when it comes to creating a personal brand, like what I have experienced to be really important is that it has to be really personal, and it has to really connect with like who you are as a person. Because if you're going to be putting a lot of energy for years and years, and it's also going to develop and have an arc, if you don't really believe in what you're selling, you can't really sustain it. So I think one of the things like is like giving yourself time to really like know like who you are, what your preferences are, and kind of like just like for me, like I journal, so like I kind of write down like, okay, these are like some of my beliefs, you know. So some of my beliefs, like I'm really big into like minimalism, like the environment and Buddhism, like these ideas like influence all of my artwork. And I try to also find other artists who share some of those inspirations as well, to kind of see how they're interpreting ideas. So I think if you're trying to make money, and like, then you could have maybe no personal brand and it's just like you stretch to whatever other people want. But that's not if you're a personal artist. That's if like you're a designer for someone else. Because like I would make a distinction between an artist and a designer. So yeah, so I think it's kind of knowing which path, like, do you want to make stuff for other people or for yourself? And yeah.
I can jump in and piggyback off that, because I definitely am more on the designer side, where my personal brand has been cultivated to make myself more marketable for employers. Because, not to say that I'm financially motivated, but it's an important part of life. You need to make money, you need to be able to survive. And if there's things that you want to pursue, fortunately, a lot of that costs money. And, you know, Keon's right. There's a balance between creating a personal brand from yourself, and you really just have to live life and figure out what you can do to discover the facets that make you who you are and how you can drive that through your work. And I do think that there's another side to it, where if you want to be marketable and you want to sell certain things or work for certain companies, you need to be a sponge for content and the domains that you're interested in, and just observe and see what's trending and what works there, and try to put your own spin on it, or dive right in and join those groups and communities. And I've definitely been on the latter side. You know, in graphic design, there are certain principles that you have to stick to. You know, it's a lot of marketing, and a lot of that is driven by data and insights. And so, you know, my personal brand was created through just a lot of research, a lot of networking, a lot of reading, and figuring out what works, and then helping, you know, the work that I produce for other clients drive my own personal work, because I know what sells and helps me get in front of employers and gets me other clients.
I can hop in there. When speaking about the personal brand as an artist, as a choreographer, I started as a dancer first. And essentially I was inspired to create my own brand, more so because I wanted to create content around music and genres that were not represented. So it was first a call to action to create opportunities, because if I was looking at agencies or different opportunities, award shows, commercials, whatever, there weren't many auditions that I was going to that actually spoke to my brand and the skill set that I had, as far as, especially in diaspora. A lot of my work is centered around African, Afrobeats, dance hall, Caribbean dance, and all of that. So I felt the need to first build and create, which meant I had to invest in what I wanted to do. So there's that component, I would say, as far as making sure that you invest in your craft, whatever that may be. And that also is not just about the content, but also the marketing tools. So investing in a website, I mean, now we have more like the digital cards, but doing that, making sure my social media was clean and coherent, and also that it would be consistent. Like, I can't have Hey Sister Girl as my handle if I want people to, you know, pursue me as an artist in a business, or take me more seriously. So just thinking about ways to be consistent, and remember that me as an individual, I have to look at myself as a business entity. And then I would say that my personal brand means different things at different times. They're always reflective of who I am as a person, but I think it's also about what I need, what serves me at that time. So before, it was about an individual just trying to get booked, trying to get jobs. Then it was like, oh, okay, I'm actually building opportunities and jobs for other people and coming more in as a choreographer and as an assistant. And now I'm looking more as a creative director, and building a collective so that I can do a plethora of things, from arts curriculum to public speaking to developing shows to tech residencies and a little bit of everything. So I've had to pivot based off of what I need, but I try to make sure that I stay true to who I am, because as it was mentioned before, authenticity is key, and people can feel that through anything that you put out there, and everything that you put out there in the digital world essentially lives forever, but you can curate the life that you want. I think it's just about making sure your brand is professional and on target with what you're pursuing.
I want to just piggyback on what KJ said in this like world of evolving. And I feel like for me, having a personal brand as an artist, especially as I grow older, has been about giving myself grace to evolve. So for my background, I started in choreography / dance recently. Well, during COVID, picked up the banjo. I sung a little bit before, but I'm really exploring this world of Black American folk traditions. And as it correlates to dance and choreography and these larger ideas I'm interested in. And I feel like something that has become very important for me as I make these transitions and these new areas for myself is realizing that even though for so many years, like it was just dance, that was my brand, quote unquote, or choreography, that was my brand. It is okay to open up your online persona or whatever you call it to these new areas, because that's kind of a natural reflection of who we are as people. And it reflects what I think multiple people are talking about, of this authenticity, right? That I feel like for myself, it's becoming more and more important for me to not pigeonhole myself into one thing that I think I have to be. But to remember that, like, as I evolve as an artist, that's how my brand should evolve too.
Yeah, one of the things that these wonderful, wonderful people has reminded me of is something I actually learned in an entrepreneurship class, in a business class at the Anderson School of Management at UCLA. One of my professors said, always look at yourself as a business, which is what everyone has been saying. You have to invest in yourself like you would invest in a business or a startup company, because you are just as important, especially in creative fields. You are the business. Even if you're working for somebody else, or even if you're designing for something, or even if you're choreographing for someone, you're still like your own business. You have your own personal brand. And for me, one of the things that is important is to be unapologetically who I am, and to take kind of every opportunity that comes my way. And right now, I think to be honest, I'm a lot less established than a lot of these wonderful panelists on here. I'm still like in my early, like I just got out of UCLA. I'm still figuring my life out. Like nothing is set, but it's really a fun time to just experiment and to explore. And I'm so fortunate and privileged to have the support of like my family at the moment. Even though I'm traveling to different places, I'm going home to Bali, but in Bali, I'm staying with family. So like I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to pay, and like life expenses are a lot lower. So things like that make it easier for me to explore a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. But for, all those things considered, I do still have like a personal brand, which is to me to be kind of, I like to push against the grain. I like to see what issues there are and kind of poke at it from a bunch of different angles. I kind of like to make people upset, but kind of not, but kind of quietly. It's an interesting thing. But some of the work that I've been doing recently with artists in Bali have been a lot of feminist pieces, and Bali is historically patriarchal and is sexist and like all those things. And I was like, you know what, like, why not create a piece where the dance style is not the pretty feminine style that one might usually see on stage, but rather something spooky, something really like straight out of like an R.L. Stine book. Like I had 20 girls and they were doing some creepy things. And that was, for me, a form of empowerment, that we don't have to look a certain way. We don't have to be a certain way. And this choreography that I created, I wanted people to be able to dance whether or not they had dance experience. I wanted them to look spooky, but in their most natural way. So there's a lot of exploration that had to happen for me to get there. A number of things happened in my senior year of college that really changed the way I thought about myself and I thought about the world. I got my heart massively broken, which is an experience that apparently people are supposed to have. But after that, I realized I was so free to create different kinds of art forms that were just so fulfilling for me in different ways that I never thought were possible. So a lot of those things, like breaking away from my old, like little IU, friendly IU, and becoming a more like, you know what, I'm a feminist, I'm an arts activist. I want to like push against the patriarchy. I'm gonna do this thing that no woman has ever done in Bali. I'm gonna do this other thing that, you know, I'm gonna create crazy choreography. I'm gonna put everyone in creepy masks. And you just for fun, just to show that women are really strong, you know, that kind of thing. So I found that having that moment of the breakaway of like having a big life change, having a big moment of grief for me was really important in terms of changing my personal brand and really being like, okay, you know what? This is what I find important in life. I find it important to stand up for people. I find it important to like be a feminist. I find it important to be an activist and be active in any possible way I can. So there's a kind of it's kind of an interesting perspective on personal brand maybe. And like say, so what's interesting is I also have at this moment, because I'm still early in my arts career, I have like the projects that I create for fun and for love and for passion. And then I have like money, but money is coming from like arts management, right? Because like you do need these things to live. So arts management projects where I'm coming in as a translator or like I'm coordinating between different artists and from different countries. That's also been a really, really cool kind of place that I've been networking. I've networked through those jobs of translation, of simply just being like the admin person. I was like literally just typing stuff out for people, and the people liked me and they were like, actually, you know what? I want to talk to you about a Switzerland Bali exchange program. Like, whoa, like that was crazy. I was literally just their assistant, you know, and somebody else saw me. So it was, I found surprisingly that there are connections in the most surprising places, sometimes from the most surprising people. Um, so yeah, sorry, that was my little spiel. It's kind of all over the place, just like my 22-year-old self, but it's a work in progress. Yes.
We can move on. Vanessa, did you have anything, or did you want us to move on to the next?
I think everyone here has given such great advice about it. The only thing I want to just add at the end of that, and I think Ayu touched on it, was that even though you're coming out of school, for those of you who are attending to get some advice here, don't be afraid to mess up. I mean, you can just go out there and think that, oh, I need a cohesive personal brand, and you will develop it, but don't be afraid to take that space for yourself to experiment as much as you can until you find it. And so what? You might make a wrong turn, but that might turn into a better way for you. So that was the only thing I wanted to add there.
I love that. I feel like there's a lot of myths that we as going into our professional careers feel that we need to know exactly what we're going to be doing, and the path is never directly the goal, right? There's a lot of twists and turns, and just through your experiences, I love the different themes of authenticity and networking, and we'll maybe touch on that in a little bit, but talking about a little bit about the practical side of being online, we were curious about what online platforms are typically used in your industry, and which areas have you found to bring you the most value in the online space. And we'll open it up to anyone as well, whoever is burning to answer.
I'll go. I feel like Instagram is kind of a big space, just like to use as a artist portfolio in some ways. I feel like between like whenever, even so as a professor at Cal State Fullerton, sometimes I bring artists in, and like the process to bring them in to teach something, I am usually with the admin looking either at people's Instagrams accounts or their websites as like the biggest supporting evidence of their portfolios. And I also have found personally TikTok to be so helpful. I think like the algorithm is just algorithming much better than Instagram does. And especially. So it's just really helpful for finding my niche as an artist. So like looking for Black folks who are into folk music, or people who are allies interested in folk music or Black American folk music. And it has done amazing wonders connecting me to audiences and people who I would not have been able to connect to on a platform like Instagram. So those are the things that come up for me.
Hey guys. So I would say definitely, you know, Instagram is definitely one of the go-tos. I feel like with the new algorithm that's happening, it's kind of making things kind of weird. But you know, I feel that without Instagram, we wouldn't be as connected as we are now. Like if you think about it, we can connect to people all over the world, you know, from Germany to Bali to Africa to Paris. And, you know, now we're getting this fan base, not just in this one location, like in our own backyard. We're actually able to build globally, which, you know, talking about our brands, you know, my brand is my name, so Free. And my goal is basically free worldwide. So it's like global connection to building like community and different spaces as I continue to move in the art space. I've recently, I think it was in 2017, I was able to have a fashion show in Paris because of somebody that's seen me on Instagram from my fashion show that I did in New York. And I was like, oh snap. They're like, something happened where I was catching my flight. I missed it. Never go to the airport on an international flight an hour before. You will not make it. I'm telling you, learn from me. So I missed my flight, but I was talking to somebody. I told them like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it. And this girl, she was from, where's she from? I think she was from like Iceland or something. And she was like going to Paris Fashion Week, but she was like, oh no, you have to go. Like, let me make some phone calls. And then she got someone to pay for my flight to come to Paris. And I went out to Paris and did my show. It was a very optimistic trip. You know, I definitely wish I could have planned it a little bit more, but I think the full experience was very amazing. And, you know, like I think with Facebook ads, there's a lot of like SEO plugins that, you know, it would allow you to kind of connect, and like it advertises your name when people search it on Google. So, I mean, I think right now, those are the kind of the main two that I'm using. I think TikTok is a great one. I just haven't gotten in the flow of using TikTok to promote my business. But TikTok is something I do plan to get into for my other businesses that I've worked with and created with, like with the Hoop Bus. I mean, I think we're like one of the most viral videos on TikTok and Instagram, just because, you know, it's videos of people getting dunked on or crossed over on the Hoop Bus. So there's a lot of viral videos that make it very interesting for people to continue watching. Obviously, I'm not dunking on nobody and crossing people over, so I'm not getting all those views. But, you know, my art is. So, I mean, I think that's the beauty of it. There's a lot of new things that are coming out now, like Discord and things like that. So, but yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic.
You just mentioned Discord, which I'll let someone else maybe chime in on that. Like, but I know a lot of the gamers and streamers are really high in on Discord and Reddit and all of that. And I can also personally attest that I found Hoop Bus first on Instagram, and then I saw it in person for the first time in Lamar Park during like a Juneteenth event. So that definitely was a lot of viral videos and moments. I tend to stick to about, I would say it's about 5 platforms that I use. YouTube is my first, and that's been the most successful for me because I started my YouTube channel back in 2012, before like Instagram and all of that was really much of a thing. I think, yeah. So I would say that's been the most lucrative for me because I was able to build the biggest international platform, which has gotten me around the world with teaching opportunities, choreography opportunities, and gigs. Second, I would say Instagram, just because also being able to create a more loyal following of people that are your peers and people that you kind of get to know through the platform in a way, and just building the relationships. And it's also a very good visual resume component for movement artists, performing artists, and so forth. And I think it's a good mixture of show and business. Then I also use LinkedIn when I'm talking about just like getting to the bag and institutions like that. I'm really, really tapping into LinkedIn when it comes to like working with jobs, corporations, interviews, like things on a more corporate sector, contract base, and so forth. And then where am I at? YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok definitely is the wave, I feel. It's just about finding the balance between the trends and the actual personable content that I personally like to create, because sometimes I'm just not into it and that's just where I am in my life. But I know that it is a booming market, so that's something I'm trying to lean into even more. And then the last one that I use mainly is Patreon. I used Patreon heavily during my thesis process because I was raising money on like GoFundMe and crowdfunding for a lot of it. I graduated within the pandemic, so we already know what that was giving. And Tula can attest, I'm like production consultant, a lot of that, but being able to document the creative process and journey also allowed people to feel like they were a part of the process and a part of the final product. So that was something that also helped me. So those are the main platforms I utilize.
Yeah, as a dancer, also performing artist, Instagram, TikTok, interestingly, Facebook, I will explain why, and YouTube were some of the platforms that worked for me. I'd say like I'm still building, so we're working on it. What's interesting is I think in Balinese art forms and the opportunities that I'm getting in Bali are coming from older artists or like generations that are older than me. So they'll be like, oh, hey, can you choreograph a piece for my village? Or like, oh, hey, can you choreograph a piece for this event in our blah, blah, blah. And those are often unpaid. You'll get a little something, but it's more about the connection to that community. And it's more about gaining the experience for me to even get the other opportunities that are at like a corporate level. To do that, I need to first have like, here's like my show reel, right? So those generations are on Facebook. And I think Tula mentioned earlier that finding your niche is important. And for the Balinese arts niche, it's the older generations and they currently love Facebook. So my parents' friends or whatever are finding like my links to like different, you know, choreographies that I've done on Facebook and kind of reaching out to me there. People have also reached out to me on Instagram saying they're interested in some things. And also, I think very different, but slightly similar to Free. I choreographed something with my dad and it was super goofy and it was for a ceremony actually. It was kind of it's a spooky mask. It's really creepy actually, but it's silly. So it's like a clown. So we choreographed a piece with like 5 young women and they're really good dancers, but this was super goofy. The whole world of Bali thought it was goofy and that went viral on like TikTok and Instagram. And it was on other folks' channels, not like mine and my dad's, but it was a really kind of surreal experience of like, hey, like that's something I made with my dad. Like, oh my gosh, like that's so fun and that's really cool. And I can't believe that people are appreciating it for what it was. And what it was my dad wanting to be like, hey, like why is this a solo dance? Let's just have 5 young women do it because why not? He's a feminist. So, you know, we're out here doing crazy things with young women. And that was really great to get discovered like that at a ceremony in Bali and for that to have gone viral and entered the crazy Bali netizen world was really, really a cool experience. So those are also, so like Instagram and TikTok are my favorites though, as as a dancer.
I'm going to jump real fast right in. I do want to mention and heed Free's advice. I know Ayu, you do need to catch a flight soon. So I did want to give you just a little bit of time before you have to go to add any additional advice that you have. And we hope you a safe trip. But I want to give you that time before we continue on with the panelists.
All right, thank you so much, Andre. Sorry, everybody, I do have to go back to the US today. But something that I'm experiencing right now is that, you know, if you're just starting out in a creative field and if you want to use social media as a way to get, well, I mean, you should use social media and other digital platforms to get your work out there. I'd say just post. Some of the random posts that I've created for my organization, for my arts company, for like my village youth org, some of the most random stories or reels or posts that I've just made out of the blue just because I was like, hey, why not? Some of those have gone viral, and some of the ones that I've meticulously edited and like drained 10 hours, they just kind of flopped. So, you know, when you're just starting, I think it's important to just get out there, just post. And it's a great way to kind of keep track of your work and things like that. Another thing that's important is to keep track of where you've been featured. So say I have, so I was a voice actor in Kena Bridge of Spirits, which is a PS4, PS5 video game inspired by Southeast Asia and Japan. That was a really insane experience. I voice acted in it. I also sang and did the score with I was part of the score, and the score was composed by my dad alongside their composer. So that was a really, really beautiful experience. So from there, of course, there were interviews that happened both in Indonesian and in English. Actually, I think one happened in Balinese. So those were also important to kind of categorize in terms of like, oh, I can do interviews in these different languages, which shows people, hey, she speaks multiple languages, which means as like an actor or as a singer, that kind of, those skills are important too. Like if they're looking specifically for an Indonesian singer, dancer, actor for whatever reason, like, oh, hey, Ayu fits the bill because she does these things and this is the proof. So making sure you keep track of your works, where you're featured in, if there's like a podcast somewhere that mentions you, if you talk to somebody, if there was an interview, those things are important to just make sure you have. And one of the things that my dad shared with a lot of students at our Arts Institute in Indonesia is that it's really important to focus on your work first. And I think other panelists have definitely talked about this. Focus on your work and your art and what you want to be creating and producing and showcasing in the world. Of course, it will change as you do. It will change based on your experience. I was in love once and then I got my heart broken and then I was a bad bitch. Like that happened, and my art did the same thing. I was nice and then I definitely was not. So it's you know, but focusing on the art and, hey, how can I do this in the best way I possibly can? How can I make this choreography better than anything else I've ever done, even if it's just a short 5-minute thing for a village that I'm not in? How can I make that better than everything else? And just really focusing on that. And then afterwards, you know, opportunities will come, but essentially be prepared for the opportunities as much as possible first. Be prepared with your art and your passions and your hard work. And then once the opportunities come, you'll be ready to jump right into them. So being brave is a big part of that. So that's my little spiel, I think. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to see some familiar faces. It's really nice to meet new people. The panelists, thank you so much. It's really wonderful to learn from you as well as somebody who's still growing and learning. And as a young person in general, it's so inspiring to hear everybody in your respective fields. So thank you so much, everybody. And I'm sorry I have to go early, but I really appreciated this time and everyone's energies today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ayu. Awesome. All right, take care. So with that, I'm gonna mention that we'll probably, I definitely overestimated the time we had, but I should have known because we have such amazing panelists with such amazing nuggets of wisdom. And I want to probably group some of the questions that I prompted you all from before. So I'm grouping them, and you are open to answer any question that you would like to answer, but also just nuggets of advice. So we have the portion, some portion to allow students to network directly with you. I feel like that's a strong component of this event. So I want to make sure that we have some time. So we'll take around 10 or 15 minutes for adding whatever nuggets of wisdom that you want to add along with how you've created yourself from your online presence. So we'll leave it to you all on how you want to chat about that, and feel free to jump right in. And thanks for being open to the flexibility. I apologize for that.
I just wanted to tack on some more stuff to your last question about online platforms. You know, in the like visual art and design space, like what everyone else has said, social media is a wonderful networking tool. It's fantastic, and there probably isn't one better out there in regards to design and actually generating jobs from it as a graphic designer. I would say you're likely to mostly get like freelance and contracted work from that. If you're looking for full-time work, or positions at a studio or an agency or another company where you're working in the creative space, you need a website. That's definitely number one. As a, someone who recruits designers for our team, we only care about a website. Your social media presence really doesn't matter. It's a bonus if you have incredible work on your social media. It's really just a snapshot into you and maybe your process, but really we want to see the full breadth of your work and see what you can do. And typically you need a website in order to showcase all of that. And then the platforms that we're typically on finding our recruits would be LinkedIn. It's mostly LinkedIn for everything. It just is the best recruitment platform out there right now for employers. And then if you're interested in marketing, I guess like online platforms I would recommend, get into IGA. It's expensive, but it's worth it. IGA is a fantastic designer community. It's full of people. They have events all over the world. There's educator communities, you name it, any kind of thing you're looking for, there's people out there for it, and it's worth the investment in your career. And then I would say, just to throw it out there, if you're interested in marketing, get a subscription to Adweek and get in the know and see what's happening in the world. IGA, it's AIGA.
I just wanted to add one thing to that for those of you who are in maybe like the fine arts, painting, sculpture, etc. And you usually don't experience your work completely. I'm not that dance is completely experienced on the internet, it's not, but in person. When you're applying for teaching jobs, for example, yes, you have your social media presence, but a website would be, or if you have special visuals on LinkedIn, something that has like a more professional, I don't know if it's professional, maybe more institutional tone to it, especially if you have to present examples of things like student work or lessons that you've taught before. So if you are going to go into teaching as a visual artist, it is good to have at least some link or a page that's maybe not completely public all the time, but somewhere where people can kind of go to see not only your professional work, your portfolio, but examples of other things like artist statements, diversity statements, and things like student work.
So the question was general advice. I just want to make sure. So I think I'll come at it from like a little bit more left field. I think one of the things I wish I would have known had I been, I think I was like 24 when I went to UCLA, is kind of knowing like the political framework of jobs. So like, for example, like not offending your boss or your manager and become like, I personally don't like political environments, but if you're going into the job world, there's a lot of power dynamics, and it's not something I'm happy about or I like, but it's a reality that I think there's a lot of terrible artists who are good at like networking, and they're good at like becoming friends with the right people, and their skill level is just enough to like get things done. And a lot of these high-paying corporate jobs actually don't require a lot of skill because it's not very complicated design. So a lot of the times it's more about like, how can you like get yourself in the position rather than have the skills for the position. So I think really like learning how to not offend people is like extremely important, and like have allies, and like, you know, go to therapy and like deal with all of your kind of like, I don't know, rough edges, because in your job, like your rough edges are going to show up all the time. And if you don't really like, if you're not a person that's like easy to work with, like you're just a liability, and like they're going to look to fire you, or they're going to, like, everyone's like fighting for the same job. So I had like a freelance job where there were people who were already established, and like any opportunity I wanted to get, even if I was a better designer, it was getting boxed out. So I think like knowing how to navigate these things, like it's something that took like many years to learn. It requires like a lot of like emotional intelligence. And I think that's something that like designers, like artists, like don't really work on enough.
Yeah, I would definitely piggyback off of that, and a little bit to what Vanessa said earlier about just not being afraid to fail. I think a lot of times we put the pressure, or we feel like we have to come out of college knowing like this is what we have to do. Some of us have been fortunate to kind of be in the spaces that allowed us to learn on the job. I also used to work in production, for at least 4 or 5 years. And after I learned certain skills, I was like, I mean, if this is all we're doing, then I mean, I can do this myself. And I kind of took the road that is kind of less traveled, which was to kind of build my own personal brand against everything else that everyone else is doing. Because, most people, in the space, you want to kind of play it safe or actually have the stability. But, with me, I kind of risk it all on myself. Free art is like my brand, and ART represents always risk taking. So for me, I'm always taking those risks. And sometimes those risks are in my favor, sometimes they're not. And, I think just being okay with, rolling the dice and hoping that things come out in your favor. I mean, like I said, majority of them have been in my favor, which has opened up a lot of doors for me to be featured in, some of the biggest publications. I actually had a show with the Guggenheim, actually, I think it was 2019, for the Jean-Michel Basquiat showcase. And I mean, during the time that I was in college, because I went to Cal State San Bernardino, and I actually dropped out, but I actually dropped out my senior year, and because I was just like, I'm already doing this stuff, like, let me just do what I need to do. Like, because I think I ran out of financial aid, and I was just like under pressure from my family. And, you have to know like why you're doing what you're doing. You can't do this for your mom, your dad, your auntie, your kids. Like, you have to want to do this for yourself, because you're not going to receive like the satisfaction at the end of it, because you're always trying to kind of people please for everyone else. And this goes back to what he was saying about like, actually knowing your position and your place, because there is also like power in the spaces as you continue to get higher up the ladder. There's a lot of people that, just for example, I was just with a friend who's a very well-known actor. He met this guy that knew me. He introduced him to me, and then they started hanging out. But this actor kind of brought this guy along to one of the casting calls that he was at. And during that casting call, the kid was super excited, but like they signed an NDA to not discuss like where they were at or what the project was that they were working on. And because he was just so young and excited, he was just telling everyone like, yeah, I'm working with this person. And, I think just understanding like your positioning, your role, because like that person that brought you, you're kind of a reflection of them. And you don't want to be a bad reflection of someone who's actually opening the door for you to walk in, because it's kind of like a smack in the face if you're going to be like, well, I did this without you, or I made it into this position without you, when there's been a lot of us, and I'm sure all of us on this stage will be able to say that we put in a lot of hard work over the years for someone to just walk up and be like, none of your work was worth it. Like, you're like, whoa, like I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. Like, I think I know what I'm doing at this point, versus just starting out and, you know, getting lucky and then saying, oh yeah, now I'm working with this person. I mean, I've worked with the biggest people in the world and I'm still climbing the ladder. So I don't think it matters about all of the people that you're meeting. It's like really connecting and having those long lasting relationships that's going to continue to have you in those rooms for other people to say, hey, I like what you do. I like how you dress. I like your personality. Or you want to go on a trip with me to Bali or Paris or wherever. And by you just being helpful to someone else opens up another possibility for you to really have an opportunity to do what you would have never thought of doing. Like, you know, I mean, look at Virgil Abloh. I mean, he worked with Kanye West for so long until he was actually in position to where they was like, we know you work with Kanye, but I think we want you here at Louis Vuitton. Like, you know, it kind of opened up another door, which, you know, Kanye was upset about because he's like, that was my job. Like, you know, Kanye wanted that job, but I think Virgil applied himself for that job in order to be in that position. Even though he kind of played number two, he still was able to receive an opportunity that he never thought was even a possibility for him. So I'm gonna just leave it at there. Thank you guys.
I'll echo some of Free's statements as far as how important it is to maintain relationships. Likability goes a long way, and I don't mean it as far as like in a superficial way, but just being genuine, being humble, because people will speak your name in rooms that your feet have not yet entered in, but that has to come from having a genuine relationship, good work ethic, and knowing that people can trust what you bring and how you deliver if they do refer you or recommend you for opportunities. Also, Matt and Vanessa mentioned something earlier too, just in regards to website and portfolio. I think it's important to do the research in the field that you're pursuing so that you know what portfolio, what landscape, what type of tools you need to have together. A lot of times when we're submitting for jobs, like Vanessa mentioned, if it's for education, having a teaching philosophy, having your artist statement, having some sample curriculum or whatever, if you're applying for that, making sure your graphic design portfolio looks, you know, clean up to par and it's on your website. It's, I mean, as a non-graphic designer and not a web developer, I use Wix. I put in my SEO, Google title tags and all of that so that I know at least when you type in Cara Janelle, my website, www.carajanelle.com is the first thing that comes up so that I can be in control of the things that do, you know, surface when it comes to internet, because there's a lot that's out there. I think it's also important to do the thing, like have some type of spiritual grounding and whatever you need for your own self-care so you can stay centered, especially if you're going into the freelance world, just because you're interacting with a lot of different energy and a turnover of gig after gig or job after job. I think this is the first time I've been in a 9-to-5 position. So I'm used to constantly being in different sets, environments, groups of people and pockets of people all the time, and making sure that I have just groundedness and security in who I am as a person, as an individual, so that those energies and situations don't change me. And also so that I have clarity in what I'm creating and putting out there. And I think Ayu mentioned before she left, just post it, create it, do it, develop it. If you have a vision in mind, go for it. I think everything happens in alignment. So when you know that you are in a creative practice that needs to be out there in the world, the opportunities and the ways to fund it, support it, the right people will see it, but you have to develop it. It's like fill the dreams, build it, and they will come. I mean, it sounds very cliche, but it really is a thing. And I can attest to some of the biggest artists that I've worked with, from Janet Jackson to Beyonce to Lauryn Hill, doesn't matter. They all sought me out because of stuff that I had created and put out in the world that people were able to say, hey, have you seen this? And so forth. And so a lot of times those opportunities come in a way that does not feel ideal of, let me apply for this situation. Sometimes it's people seeking out something and they come across your page, whether it's on TikTok or LinkedIn or your website, or through a referral, however it may be. And I would just say, just be unapologetically you. I think there's so much talent out here in this world, and a lot of times we sit on our gifts. And I know that before my time to lay to rest, I just want to be able to know that I've been a vessel for who I am and what I'm supposed to do, and that whatever God has placed on my heart and being to be here on this earth, that I have satisfied that. So you can curate your life. My mentor literally told me today, because I was talking about some other stuff that was going on, and he was like, KJ, you can curate your life, you know that. And I was like, that's true. I curate programming all the time. I do it for like projects, and I do it in a compartmentalized way. And then the day, you can curate your life. So the world is yours. Yeah.
I just want to toss in a point off of what KJ said on wellness, and like, yes, take care of yourself, especially if you're an artist building a brand. Know that like if you're on social media creating your, your art on an online platform, at the end of the day, taking care of yourself is important, and that can reflect in the way that you post too, right? So for example, this is a advice that I was given when I first started out as a young 20-something-year-old dancer. I watched a work by this choreographer that I was so inspired by. And I was like, how in the world will I ever create anything like this? And so after the show, I went up to talk to him, and he gave me this advice that I hold really dear. And he said, you know what, and when you're in your younger 20s, there's going to be like 500 dancers all trying to pursue this thing, right? When you get to your 30s, there may only be 100 of y'all. When you're in your 40s, it may dwindle down to like 20. And he said that to say that like being an artist is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So if you're an artist who create works all the time and that is your jam, that's wonderful. But if you're an artist who like needs to take some time to live, to process, to think before you're creating out a next big project, that's okay too, right? And so that I really resonate with that, because I am an artist who desires to work long-term on projects and to really process over multiple years before I put out really big things. And I put that into my social media practice too, especially after COVID, where there was so much turmoil, we all were living in. So for example, really specifically on Instagram, I only post quarterly. So I do quarterly newsletters starting this year, post-COVID. And I actually have found that I get really great engagement with a lot of my followers on that platform doing quarterly newsletters rather than posting more consistently on that platform. Same with TikTok, I post only monthly, and that works for me. So I just want to encourage, if there's people who have a different art practice or different production practice, that is okay. It's okay to go by your own rhythm too.
And I also just want to chime in and say, take care of your finances, especially if you are a freelance artist. It's never too early to get your Roth IRA, get your, investments, do portfolios, especially if you do not go into working for a corporation or entity that's going to have a retirement plan planned out for you, and so forth and so forth. So financial literacy is so key. Yeah, especially for longevity.
All right. If there's any other last things, feel free to interrupt me now. But I think this is a good time to break off to our sessions and network with these folks. What we're going to do, actually, before we do, I'm gonna have to Photoshop Ayu in this, but let's do a brief smile for the panelists. So 3, 2, 1, cheese. All right, thank you so much. And we're going to break off into breakout rooms For the panelists, thank you all so much. We're gonna have you all get started in there and have you situated. All the students, please stick back around. We'll give you a little bit of a hype speech to get you ready for networking, and let the panelists go into their breakout rooms. So in case the panelist has any issues with finding them, let us know. Angela, feel free to help with the signing if they need any assistance. And we'll go from there. In terms of the students, I'll be addressing you all now, and I'm going to actually go ahead and stop the recording since we are